Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fit Conversations. I'm your host, Anthony Payton. Hey, as always, it is a pleasure to have you with us. And tonight, like all our shows, we have an exciting guest here. And this guest has a special place in my heart because I've seen her grow tremendously, and she's doing some outstanding things in this community. But enough of what I have to say. Let's welcome Denita Washington to the show tonight. Welcome, Denita.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It is an honor to have you. I mean, considering your schedule, I am thankful that we were able to book you. We had to book you a month in advance, 2 months in advance.
I took a nap about 2 hours ago, so I'm good.
You know, I really mean this, and I think you know it, so I'm preaching to the choir. You know, when I look back at from the time that I have met you and now, the growth is off the chart.
Yeah. I literally today was writing after a speaking engagement I had with Leadership Fort Wayne. And Tamala Mann's song came on, He Did It For Me.
Wow.
And in the part where she says, after all I've been through. And I wept wept my way back to Township to work. But man, He did it for me.
Yeah, and you put the work in, though.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, God did it, but you put the work in and are putting the work in.
I am. I understand the assignment.
That's See, everybody don't get that.
They don't.
Everybody don't get that. You know, one of the things that fascinates me about this stage in your life, and having watched where you have come from, this path that you travel, and all the different recognitions that you have received. I mean, I gotta, your people call my people.
Thank God for our people.
and they email me all the recognitions that you received. Denita, that is awesome. And I think, you know, people out there, you might not understand why I'm so excited and what I'm talking about, because you don't know this young lady's story. You know, and if you don't know a person's story, you can't appreciate their journey. But share with our audience, if you would, as much as you can about this path, because where you are now and how you're serving this community, did you ever see yourself doing this?
Not at this capacity,
Okay.
no. So I tell people I'm really having a lot of full circle moments.
Okay.
That's the other thing. So I started out, you know, with Township. That was the first moment. And I told somebody after my divorce, there was a moment when I wasn't sure. I had lost my job on a Wednesday and got divorce papers on like that Friday. And so that summer, going out of the school system, I got concerned at a point. About June or July, it was like, okay. And I remember having to call Adams Township. And they were so rude to me. And I thought, if they handle me this way, I'm pretty educated, a Christian, how do they then handle people who come from a little bit more rugged, rough background? And so fast forward, I didn't have to go. And fast forward, had some talks with some people on some governmental issues here in the city. And somebody asked me, if you were to go into politics, what would you do? And I said, Township trustee. And I said, because I just remembered that moment.
Wow.
You know, and I thought about Jim Winters. I had done some research on some of our past trustees and some of the things that they had done to create impact. And so my mom said she remembered, she told me the story of when they used to have to stand outside at Wayne Township to get service. And it was Jim Winters who created an atmosphere where they could go inside and be warm while they waited. And I thought, see, to most people that's small. But when your mother speaks about how that was a moment for her and it was a game changer, that was huge for me. And so that was a big part of the journey. And then I think the other one is when I got hired with Fort Wayne Housing Authority recently. I grew up in McCormick Apartments, and I told somebody earlier today when I was speaking at an engagement, I've always, in my younger years, always been labeled to me poverty or less than because of free lunch or where we grew up at in McCormick. And so I tell people all the time, when you label kids, it sticks with them.
Yeah.
Unknowingly. I think the adults in our life, they didn't know. They trying to get us through the lunch line or get us through the line. But unknowingly, it put something in me that set me back mentally. And so when the position came up, I didn't look to get hired. Somebody called me and said, this is your job. You need to apply. And when I did the research, I thought, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. And you absolutely are. So I keep telling people too, secondly, the power of one. It only takes one person to see in you what you don't see in yourself.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, hands down.
Wow.
Interviewed, and even the last 3 or 4 candidates, won't mention their name, but it was some heavy hitters. And I kept thinking, there's no way, like, I'm not gonna get this position. And I did. And what I think gave me the edge, in retrospect, thinking back, and even was told this, it was the past experiences. It was a lot of times we despise those.
Yeah.
We wanna not look at what we were, what we come from, but it was from which I came. That when I spoke and articulated myself and what I would do in the position, it spoke from a place that no one else could speak from. And that's the thing I try to tell young people now, like, don't despise where you come from. And what your parents are and your beginnings, because I'm telling you, it's building you for something.
Scripture teaches you that don't despise small beginnings. You know, the principle is still there that, you know, no matter where you started at, we appreciate that path, that start, and build on it and continue to exceed, as one guest said, to exceed expectations of people.
Yeah.
And you have blown expectations of people out of the water.
Yeah, I think, again, you know, I just remember it, like I said, when I was in school and all those places, they always just had a myth of who we were. And then I tell people, they don't really know from which I come. You know, my uncles are all very affluent. They're in Congress and, you know, and so people only know me from the edge of Fort Wayne. But if they knew the root of who I am, they would then understand, oh, yeah.
You know, and I think that's important because, you know, your mom was on the battlefield for the Lord and speaking up for people and doing what she could for this community, even as you all were young children.
I remember there's a picture of me and her, and I wish I could find it. When I had my house fire, I lost it. But it was Dr. Sharon Banks, her, and some other women around a table, and it was Title I. And at the time, Dr. Banks was doing something from the school perspective, but my mom was the parent. And I was on the ground playing with toys, probably not paying any attention. But I tell people, too, I believe the drippings of what was going on around that table fell up on me.
Yeah, there's some strong women at that table.
And from that, I've always, people ask me, you know, where did this come from? And my mom's a little more silent than me. So she was the one at the back table making the noise, or when the door was closed, I'm in the forefront. But I know I am because she was. I know that. Yeah,
mom is still, I mean, she walks quietly, but she carries a big stick, as the old adage goes. You know, she's been in the trenches for this community and people. And so I agree, when I see you, I see her.
Yeah.
I see all that she fought for, all that she has given this community and those that haven't had. And so she has been a part of the shaping of you. Rick Warren, in his book, Purpose Driven Life, he uses this word shape to kind of describe how people develop. And he says the S stands for their spiritual gift. And you heard we've been teaching on that a lot. You know, that gift that's in there. And the H stands for that heart, you know, their heart. And the A stands for their abilities.
Wow.
And the P stands for their, say it.
Purpose.
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 And he goes on and he talks about that E standing for their experience. The good, the bad, the ugly of those experiences.
Because those experiences come in the door with you. the author Ashley Ford, when she came here, she spoke of that, and it spoke to my soul. She said, you know, she sometimes is in a place now in New York, and she can be having a glass of wine that costs as much as the Letterman jacket that she couldn't afford at Harding High School when she was here. And so every time she's having an experience, that little girl then enters the room with her.
I know that feeling.
Man.
That's powerful.
Yes.
That's powerful.
You know, when she said it in the room, I'm weeping. Everybody else is looking around, but I'm thinking, I understand that because I've had those moments when I'm in a room and I'm enjoying what God has blessed me to go to a place like Brazil. And I'm sitting in the room watching the waves, and that used to just be a dream for me. And now it is the reality of what God has blessed me to experience.
I found myself in that position, and I whisper, I said, thank you, Mom, thank you, Nanny, my grandmother, because they believed that would happen for me, even when I didn't believe or were behaving quite contrary to that. And I often say to myself in that experience, I'm still that little boy from 1125 Mobile Street.
Oh, man.
When I'm on the top floor of this hotel in another country, and I'm saying, how in the world I get? I said that to Sandy and I went to Monte Carlo, and I'm sitting there in Monte Carlo with the races going on and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, and you know, I'm standing right there at the door of the casino where Bond said, "Shaken and not stirred." I said, "What did I doing? How did I get here?" And I appreciate those small beginnings.
And I've asked myself recently, what did I do to deserve it? Like that's the thing, because sometimes I'm bombarded by some people who haven't gotten that experience, and they're still in their own races, and so I'll say or question, like, what did I do to deserve this? And the one thing that God has answered me recently, you kept your heart to me, and to the people that I assigned to you. You know, even when other folks dismissed them, even when they gave up, you know, you understood the assignment that I gave you, and you didn't let money, you didn't let new positions, any of that take you off the course of where I placed you and for the reason I placed you there.
You know, Denita, that statement in and of itself speaks volumes, because there's this principle we call the law of reciprocity. Whatever you sow, that shall you reap. And the Bible says that if you cast your bread upon the water, not many days hence it will return. In one fashion or another, what you send out comes back.
Absolutely.
And if you send out the caring, the loving, the patience for people, even when they're acting crazy and doing things, but you still know your assignment to them is to make sure that they don't have a reason to give up because you turned their back to them.
I mean, I tell people, even when I worked in the schools and I was helping hundreds of kids go to college, and my own children were struggling academically. And here I am standing at graduation, and I kept pleading with God, like, what is this, God? Why? I'm a good mom. They have a good dad. You know, you go through all these scenarios. And he said, patience. Their destiny is going to be what it's going to be, and it'll be good, you know. And so I tell people all the time now, my sons are good men.
Ooh,
you know, they're good, godly men.
Yes, they are.
You know, my son is married. He loves his wife, you know, and unapologetically, publicly love her. He loves his mama. You know, he loves his grandmother. So, you know, sometimes we wish for the degrees or whatever destiny we had. We had a wall when they were younger. We called it the Wall of Stars, from Gus Macker trophies. And I remember when all kinds of just athletic trophies. And I remember when the house burned down, I said, "Oh, y'all stuff is gone." And God said, "You never asked me. That wasn't the path I had for them. That was your planned path. You and their dad. You never asked me."
Wow.
You know, and so I release my kids back to him. And I look at what he's manifesting in my sons now. And I said, to God be the glory that I was humble and conscious enough to give them back. Like, let God, whatever you want, you do it. And that came from my mom. She said, that was your plan.
Wow.
You the one playing a 4-year college. That was not their destiny. And she said, what you want is somebody who will love the Lord. Somebody who will love you, when you get old and can't walk, and will come back and see about you. She said, tend to you. You
10
know,
to you.
yeah.
That's that old
Yeah.
language right there. 10 to you.
Yeah, and tend to the young
Yeah.
in this family. And so both of them have that. And so
They both have that, and I mean, they both are doing some great things. I mean, they are just off the chart. They're following their parents' footsteps.
yeah. And Quentin, it's so funny because Quentin says that to me all the time. He's recently experienced some greatness with his football team and traveling. And before he went, he came over and almost childlike sat close to me before he left, nervous and had some anxiety about some things. And I said, listen, Q, trust God.
Yeah.
I said, listen, love them. Love them, Q. I said, they're grown men, they kids in a grown man body. I said, but lead with love. Give them the experience of their life in Miami, because some of them will never have this experience again, win or lose. I said, don't worry about the win on the field. Worry about the win of them as men.
That's that E again, that experience.
Man.
Yeah.
And I said, if you can give them the experience and exposure to something different, that's the game changer for whatever he has destined for them. It may not be NFL. It could be to just come back and coach and be a good dad. And you have to accept that and know that that's what he wants for them. So it's been awesome.
You speak very passionate about your boys.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with that, because, you know, Pastor White used to tell me, he said, Peyton, it's a poor dog that won't wag his own tail. You got to brag on yourself sometimes, you know, and you should. You know, they are doing some exciting things in both of their sphere, and it's because the atmosphere, I mean, the atmosphere that you all produce for them, created for them.
I told somebody, I said, I never knew I was poor. When I realized that, I guess, that I was poor, I was sitting in a sociology class at Snyder High School, and they talked about the government cheese and the canned meat. And I thought, oh, we got that at the house, you know? And so I came back home and I'm like, Mama, you know, they said we poor. And she said, who? You know, I gave her the scenario, and she grabbed me by the face with both her hands. And she said, poverty and poor is a state of mind. It's what you think. And, you know, I tell people, you know, I remember we always had great Christmases because she shopped all season. I never even felt, where some people around us, they had the feeling of that because their mothers didn't have the understanding of a poverty mind. My mom didn't have a poverty mind, you know, and so we saw her go to work. She took us to the Festival of Light, Embassy of Trees. We took vacations. But see, her brothers made sure we had those experiences. I can remember when they would come to visit 2 or 3 times a year, they would do a perspective check and watch. We didn't have to share bicycles with nobody else, because if we didn't have it, they was going over to Kmart on Coliseum and they were going to get it. They were going to make sure we had everything we needed. I remember comforter sets. Our friends used to have just blankets, but they made sure we had character comforter sets. So Leith and Ethan Allen pulled up in McCormick because they made sure we had what we needed and were comfortable. And so I think that family tree, and you know, that Hutchins, that's my mom's last name, they understood how to lay legacy within their own, and it has paid off.
I had another guest, and we went down this path. I asked them, you know, what do they think contribute to their success? You know, and we started off by talking about that family unit, that construct at home, you know, and I felt the same way in terms of not knowing how poor we were until I got older, and then I said, oh, okay, I guess we are poor, you know. But my mom, you know, I tell people when we lived in New York, I wanted to go to Mississippi and see my grandmother. My mom couldn't get off from work to take me. So she sat me down and said, I can't get off from work to take you. But we're going to go down here. I called the train station. They said, you need to take a test. And at 7 years old, she took me down to downtown to Grand Central Station in their little office. They put me in there and they gave me a series of questions. And I came back. I said, that little boy can go anywhere he want to go. And she bought the ticket. and put me on the train and sent me to Mississippi to see my grandmother. You know, and I never will forget that trip because everybody on that train was like, "You on here by yourself?" You know, and it was like everybody on the train was watching out for me. Now, you know, you don't get off here now, and all that. And it was a long ride, and that was my travel bug. I mean, that was when the travel bug bit me, and then from that point on, I would leave Mississippi. Because at that time, another time I went down there, she was in Miami, so she said, take him to New Orleans, because they didn't have a airport in Hattiesburg, and take him to New Orleans, and I got on a plane in New Orleans and flew to Miami where she was at, and that was it. And I think our parents sacrificed so much to make sure they set us up for life. You know, and they may not have been able to give us all the money, but they put something in us.
I told somebody Jonathan McReynolds' song, I'm Not Lucky, I'm Loved.
That's powerful right there.
Listen.
That's powerful.
Listen, I'm loved.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know it. And I knew it young. I know now. I'm not lucky. My mama loved me. You know, my uncles love me.
Yeah.
You know, my sister, brothers, they love me.
Yeah.
And so I tell parents all the time, you don't have to have a lot, but let your kids leave the front door knowing when they have to go out into the world and battle that they love, because that will then set them up to understand that even when the outside world don't get it and understand you, when you come back, you can get restored, rejuvenated, refreshed to go back out.
I'm about ready to take up an offering. You preaching here.
I mean, you know, that's my truth. And I've taken that motto into even like my Girls Rock program, into the township. You know, my slogan at township is to lead with love. Yeah. You know, because so many times people come into that space broken, broke, and sometimes it's their fault, but sometimes they're hard-working people working 3 and 4 jobs trying to make ends meet. And so when you can meet them with an attitude of love, when you can meet them with open arms, and sometimes even when you have to deny them because you love them, you know, their whole perspective is different.
They see it different. They see the denial differently.
Yes.
You had one term, and you were running unopposed still for a second term.
I am.
Now let's think about this.
Yeah.
Nobody expected you to win. I won't say nobody. Few people expected you to win.
Yeah.
And you've done a Herculean job. You know, one of the things I admire about what you did day one is you brought in some incredible people, talent, to help that shift and to make sure that everything was done in excellence. I am thinking about the accountant that you brought in that comes in and audit things and stuff like that. And the time that I sat down and been in meetings with him, and you brought a caliber, if you allow me, talent in, and you surrounded yourself with people that knew what they were doing, and you're not intimidated by that.
No, good leaders understand greatness.
Come on, somebody.
Yeah.
Come on.
Like, the one thing that I've learned is that you gotta know your blind spots, you know, and understand that in bringing somebody in who can cover that spot doesn't make you less than. It really makes you more powerful.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, you know, somebody asked me the other day about it, and I said, man, I'm confident because I know the team. I'm equipped. You know, I'm equipped to do the work, and it goes beyond me. My bench is deep.
Yeah.
You know, my bench is deep.
Yeah, you got deep bench.
Yeah, and you know, I know that when I'm not in the building, that the game doesn't change.
It doesn't change, and it doesn't stop.
They're gonna lead with love. I don't need to be there for them to be kind.
Wow.
They understand that that's what we do. And it goes beyond any race and
Yeah.
any gender and any age.
Yeah.
And so they understand that, God is ever present
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
us.
So how does it feel after finishing this one term and going into this second term? And I say this again, unopposed.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're not narcissistic, so I know it's not anything to brag about in terms of look what I've done. That's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I sat in some of those meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Those meetings were tense.
Mm-hmm.
But you are the epitome in the meetings that I sat in of what Michelle Obama said: when they go low, we go high.
Yeah. And it was those voices. I tell people the Maya Angelou, the Michelle Obama. And, I tell people I felt like Barack. I really did, because opposition was everywhere. He didn't get to breathe. And so I think in watching him and Stacey Abrams, people really don't even understand what I did, because that year, the focus from the Democratic Party was really Courtney Tritch. And so when I won, they didn't really even celebrate in the room because they were so disappointed on the loss.
Yeah.
And so I was the only one who turned seat that year.
Wow.
And the first African American and the first female in that role of Adams Township trustee. And I remember going home, Pastor Peyton, and they didn't announce, remember, when we waited over there a couple of hours, so we went home. And when they announced it, I went in my bedroom, because I then thought, what have I done? Like, oh, wait a minute, I really did it. And so, as the days went on, I understood then, okay, this is done. Lots of people calling you with their plans and their agendas, people wanting contracts, who didn't always have good intentions. And then God said, hear my voice. Continue to hear me. I positioned you because of your obedience and your discipline. Mm-hmm. Continue that journey. I'm going to drive this. I got you. And you belong at the table. Because I think that's what we do a lot of times. When we haven't worked in the arena, we don't always understand the gifts we're bringing to the table. The gift of love, the gift of listening, the gift of understanding people who come from a walk of life that sometimes our communities don't want to deal with, the voiceless. That's what was needed.
No.
Like you said, you can hire the other stuff, but the heart and the rhythm, can't hire that.
Yeah, I tell people I go through this process when I'm thinking about bringing somebody in, or even promoting them to a new position within the church, and I look at several things. One is competence naturally. One is are they teachable? All those things. But one of the things that I look at most importantly, are they compassionate? Can they put themselves in the moccasins of someone else? And empathize and sympathize whenever possible with that person's journey and where he or she may be at that point. Because I don't care how competent you are and how much talent you have, if you don't have that compassionate disposition to treat that person with love, or as you say, lead with love, even when they are not acting in a lovable manner, you miss what God wants to do for you and through you. Point blank. We're not responsible for their response, their behavior, but we are responsible for ours,
And that's a part of the assignment.
That's a part of the assignment.
Can they see him in us?
Yes.
As we work, and we only think it's on Sundays at the sanctuary.
Yeah, you're right.
But really, it's among the people.
Yeah.
And so I've taken that with me, in that day-to-day walk, and that's the win.
Yeah.
Even with the contentious board. Yeah. I think when you say you were in the meetings, that's what you saw. I kept saying to myself, what is it? What is the hurt? What is the pain? And a lot of it, I think, was just the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
The lack of experience of people who look like me in the position. Yeah. And I think over time, I'm not going to say I wore him down. I think God did, because he showed up.
Yeah. Yeah, he
And it
definitely
was
showed up.
undeniable.
Yeah.
And even, I remember even one of them saying, in speaking to their pastor and going, they had to go have some conversations, some come to Jesus with their own pastor, because I think it challenged them to say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to her? So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and this time unopposed, new board perhaps.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
That's the goal.
that's the goal, and see what God does.
Man. I tell people, I've just been quietly working. A lot of people have asked me, like, you've been quiet, we don't see you, da 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 da. And I said, sometimes you got to get silent. You have to move and work and operate in silence so that when the race begins, when it's time, you're prepared.
Stuff moves.
Yeah, and you're coming from a preparation with Him, not the outward preparation, the upward one.
One of the things that equally amazes me about you is not only do you operate in excellence in the position with the township and all that went on there and all that is yet to happen and all the things that God has placed in your heart to do that, but you also, as you alluded to, are the founder of Girl Rocks.
Yeah, it's my heart.
I mean, and that program in of itself is huge.
Yeah. That program was birthed probably from my pain of a kid. I remember Metro Youth Sports. Most people played Metro. And Miss Lundsey, I'll never forget her. Archie Lundsey's wife was my cheerleading coach, and Pam Elliott. And they selected me to be the captain. And if any of the people, the audience knows, if you get chosen for the captain, girls don't always like that because you get to pick the cheer, what's going to be called. And I remember that walk home from Memorial Park to McCormick, being taunted, hit, told that if you don't call my cheer and blah, 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 and it set something up in my spirit, Pastor Peyton, because I then began to understand that leadership comes with a cost. And sometimes it's a loss. People who said they love you, people who said they respect you, they're your friend, they're your girl, they're your squad, will instantly turn on you the minute it appears that success is happening for you at a different rate or level. And it set something up in me that I didn't want to be a leader. It was like, I frayed away from leadership. I remember at Black Hawk Middle School teaching the girls cheers, but not getting on the team, just because leadership comes with a cost. Got to Snyder and was asked to be leadership with Anita Evans on some things and dummied myself down. Began to behave like some of the other girls just because leadership come with a cost. So if I blend, I'm good. But if I rise above them, because I easily could have, it'll cost me something.
How do you communicate that to the group, and I'm speaking, not even hypothetical, but more rhetorical, because I see you in action. How do you communicate that to young girls today?
Talk to the experience and tell them, like, listen, I understand that when the negative conversation shows up at the bus stop and there's something in your stomach that happens when a certain person arrives, because you never know if it's going to be your day. See, everybody get a day when that happens. They going to taunt and tease them today, and if you laugh and join in, your day coming. So take your power back from those people. Because a lot of times what you have to recognize for them is that they're hurting. And they come to the table from pain and hurt. Whereas I came from a space of being loved. Not lucky, loved.
I got you.
So, I had to learn that was okay. I don't need to dumb me down or feel bad that when I get home from school, my mama got dinner cooked. And my daddy is going to arrive and eat with us. And that it wasn't always, but there was a healthy relationship there, and so I knew him, the neighbors knew him. And so, but a lot of my friends never knew their dads. And so that's what I tell girls. And then I start reminding girls who are lucky, who are loved, don't take it for granted, but also share it. Like I tell my granddaughters that with their dad, when friends and cousins want to hug on them, I said, share him. They need it. Let him be able to help love somebody else to a good place. We're at a family function the other day, and one of the grandgirls started getting teased, one of the cousins, and there was a look, and somebody said, "Girls rock." See, my family already know. My grandkids, my nieces, they all know. Girls rock. And immediately, I apologize. I was just teasing. I said, what does that do to a person's? And my granddaughter said, spirit. When you tease, it closes their spirit. So you can teach that at 8 and 9 to recognize it in girls, kids, when they don't have that love. That's what they're gonna come to the lunch table with. That's what they're gonna show up at the bus stop with. And when you can recognize it, then you know how to deal with it. Not by fighting and combating them, but just saying, hey, this doesn't feel healthy today. You know, like I told her you're not being kind. And so I'm gonna leave this lunch table and have the courage, because eventually after a while, it manifests to other girls then having the courage to say, you're right, it doesn't feel good. You know, and it's okay.
Dreams for Girls Rock, aspiration for Girls Rock.
I would love to, for one, take them back to Brazil. I think that experience for the 2 or 3 that we took has to be for 25 to 30. I think that international travel and having them see that what they deem as poverty and poor, they have no idea.
They have no idea.
And the appreciation for the little things in life I have not ever forgotten that trip. And I had gone to Brazil before, but that trip changed how I even maneuvered and ran Girls Rock. Because I quit buying all the frilly stuff on the tables and all, because none of that matters. What matters is, what are you putting inside of them?
I talk to those, the girls, they're older now, they're from Brazil, that was there. Some of them have gotten married and have their own children and family, and they still talk about that. They still talk about Girls Rock.
Yeah.
You know, they have the church, First Baptist Church, Rio Benito. They have a new pastor because Pastor Daniel resigned.
Okay.
And, he retired rather, and they got this wonderful new cutting edge pastor, and they still talk about that trip.
Yeah. So for me, when you ask me like the goals and what I would like to see, I would love to give that experience. I would love to one day have a building Southeast Fort Wayne that was totally focused on girl empowerment, via athletics, college readiness, social, emotional, mental health, because I think wellness is another piece that is overlooked with young people, and especially girls. They deal with a lot, and I think that if I had there were some things that my mom did right, but I also think there were some things that when you don't know better, you only do what you know. And so just prayer alone wasn't enough. I think that mental wellness piece, when it fell too low and she couldn't grab and catch me on some things, that if I had some mental health support, some of that sadness that drew me in, I probably wouldn't have been a teen mom. And everybody says it's your design. I get it, but I do believe that. I believe that there was just some blind spots.
Well, that generation was focused on strength.
Yeah.
You got to be strong enough to deal with this kind of, So I think even now, years removed from that generation, as a people, African Americans in general, we still struggle with getting mental health.
Yeah.
We still struggle with that. There's some kind of shame with that, with sitting down with a therapist or a counselor and sharing your heart. That makes you weak, especially with men. And I know that women do the same. So I agree with you. There needs to be a place, a safe place where that can happen.
And I have normalized it in Girls Rock. Like, that's one of the things in my mom and mentor sessions about 4 or 5 years ago. We were doing surveys, and we started realizing on the surveys, most of the girls would say, when we asked like their greatest pain or where it came from, they said their dad or a boy.
Really?
And so we started the dad panels because we wanted to start having conversations with moms because part of it was too, moms were blocking the relationship.
With
They're
dad.
angry, yes. And daughters were saying, I want to see my dad. I love my dad. I know he might have did something wrong or he might have been in prison, whatever it was, but they still, because it is a natural fit from him to have a father.
I remember sitting on a couple of those panels. It was revolutionary.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah.
And so a lot of our girls, that was the other thing I think, data is critical. So if you ask me about, future, I really want to tap into responding and really looking at the data of my program and how I do it, the depth, so that I understand then the needs. And that's come with growth. I used to just do programs, and set up and celebrate. But now everything's driven off what does the data say? When girls leave and they do those surveys, what did they say about this experience? And secondly, what did they say about what they want in the future?
I was talking to someone maybe a month and a half ago, and they said to me, let me tell you something, Anthony. Data is money.
Yeah.
You ain't got no data, you ain't gonna get no money.
That's true.
If you don't know how to process the data, you're not gonna get no money. Data is money. He said you need to start thinking about the data as money. I said, okay, I have to make that transition, in my thought. I love data, but I never processed it, that, okay, I never put a dollar sign attached to it.
And it speaks.
Yeah.
It speaks to narrowing in on what really is the issue. Because a lot of times we spin our wheels thinking it's one thing, but when you really look at what people will put to paper and what they say, it's not. It's something else. And so that's what I've learned about data, that, it's important to understand how to read it. So I've talked with like Rachel Blackman at Purdue Fort Wayne, Chris Dowse, Albert Brownlee. They're gurus of data. And so they've really helped me gather and understand, listen, this is what's important. And this is then going to drive the vision of where Girls Rock goes next.
Whew. And then we come around the corner and the housing position.
Yeah. Housing has been interesting. I tell people, Girls Rock is my wheelhouse. I could probably do that with my eyes closed, honestly. And school system is because I had been in it so long, education and kids. Housing, I'm learning. And so it's forcing me to, this is not easy. And initially I kept thinking, ooh, did I do something? Did I pick the wrong? And God was very clear with me about 2 months ago. You did not. Everything else has come pretty natural. And so I need you to study me. Not so much housing, me, my word. Because if you can get clarity on my word and you begin to bathe yourself in it, I'll open your thought process to housing. And so part of what I'm learning is that we can spend our time being busy and building titles, but God really wants us to build people, their hearts, and connection to Him.
He wants that relationship.
Man,
He wants
critical.
that relationship. And I think that, unfortunately, for political reasons and political reasons are birthed out of selfish reasons, we all are living in these silos, and our relationship is transactional.
Yep.
If you can't do nothing for me, even though you're in my silo, I ain't hanging with you. And it becomes less about being servant leaders. It becomes less about being sacrificial to help somebody, et cetera. It becomes about what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
And in a city which is, even though it's the second largest city in the state, it still has that small town Mayberry feel. I think that disposition gets amplified, and so people, when they hit that wall and they have a bad time, they get job layoff, and they've been working all their lives, and they transition from a middle class family to having to call somebody in a township, and they get treated like they're garbage. It does something for people. It affects them. And then and every social program has that component to it if we're not careful, has that remnant of people who says you must have done something, or you must be lazy, or you're in this position because you didn't work hard enough. You got to pull yourself up, and so sooner or later people get beat down so much that they get accustomed to the beat down, just so they can get the money and be done with it.
Well, in that housing, I'm director of programs, so I'm enrichment and career services. I'm over in charge of that, and I tell people the beauty of that is that I get to set up programs that combat all of what you just said. So bringing in health visions, bringing in mental health, bringing in dad and maternal talks. All of those things, we just look at what are things that are preventing the families here from having family self-sufficiency, because that's the ultimate mission. It is not for them to stay on housing generationally, 2 and 3 generations deep. No, we want to change that. And so the goal of my team is to enrich them, to get them ready for careers, academically, jobs, and part of it is we want to take them from even just being maybe a CNA to an LPN to an RN. You got to change the way they see life. Again, poverty mindset is really hard to change. And so, but I've done it. I told somebody, I remember when I used to get food stamps, and my husband at the time had never had that experience. He came from a different walk. And he said Cub Foods was open. I'll never forget Cub Foods. And I didn't want to give him up, and he said, listen, we're about to get married. You can't be married and still have be on the systems. And this is a poverty mindset, though. And, I remember contemplating, like, wait a minute now. And it wasn't nothing but I don't know how much it was, but I can't remember that. But I'm thinking, when I think back on that mindset, that I was willing to look, we could just kick it. But I'm hold on to this because of the security blanket and the thought process of what it was. And I thank God for a mom and, even the experience with him, because it helped me understand, no, you can live without these systems. There are things that you could do, get educated, take the steps, supportive, have these support systems that can help you. And I'll never forget the first time I went in Cub Foods with a checkbook. And I wrote the check for $200-some on groceries. And literally it was riveting to me. And then the next week though, thinking so what we gonna do next week? And Zoner paid him again, so we were okay. And so, but again, Pastor Payne, that poverty mindset for families is when that's been your experience, that's hard to change. And so that's one of my missions. I tell people all the time, I'm not over here on mistake. I know what I'm doing. I'm on mission.
One of the many pleasures that God has allowed me to experience is when I was at True Love, this young lady started volunteering on the bus ministry that we did back in the day. I've been here 26, so this is probably this is close to 40 years ago. And she was generational welfare. Her mom, she was. And she had several children, but all she had known from her first child into the sixth child was welfare, food stamps. And it was obvious that she was bright and intelligent, but she had taken on this mentality, as you said, the poverty mentality. So Sandy and I, even back then, that was even before we got married, she worked there at the bus ministry. So we started working with her and pouring into her. I said, you're too smart for this. You're really limiting yourself with this. And so over the period of time, she went back to school. She ended up going back and getting a GED. She went on and got an associate degree. From associate degree, she went on and got a BA. And then she ended up getting her MSW. Now, here's the piece to that. And she ended up counseling women, and et cetera, et cetera. But the piece to that that still emotionally rivets me, because her daughters saw her do that. Her daughters. Now, all of them have multiple degrees. And one of them goes here,
Yeah.
you know, and both of her, two of her daughters have PhDs, you know.
I remember watching my mom when she was going to school at Purdue Fort Wayne. And my mom never drove. She's never driven a car. And when my dad couldn't take her, I remember her taking the bus from Lincoln Life to the school. And at the time, I think she might have been at Kohl's because she was a manager at Kohl's for a while. And she was going to school at Purdue. And I remember thinking like, man, how and why is she doing this? All my other friends' moms out there, they was cool. It's like, this is my destiny, and I'm good with it. My mom was never cool with it. She understood that, like, you know, from where she come, she was gonna have to make some changes. And I remember, you know, as a kid when she graduated, you know, and there's a feeling that comes when you watch success happen with people that you love.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and I tell young
Yes.
people all the time, I said, listen, I can't explain it, baby. Can't explain it to you. All I know is that you want to feel this feeling. There's something in the pit of your stomach. So when I turned my first tassel, in high school I missed graduation because I had my son on June 1st. Graduation was June 3rd. And I remember thinking, I won't get this feeling again. So then Ivy Tech happened and I graduated. And the feeling, Pastor Peyton, I had when I turned that tassel at Ivy Tech, because for a 2-year associate, I think it took me 4 years because I had kids. But my mom said, I didn't put no time on you. Just finish it. And that's important. Parents got to learn to speak. Quit putting your kids on timelines that everybody else has or what somebody else's kid is doing. My mom understood the assignment. And so when I went and got my undergrad, 4 years took me 8. Don't worry about it. After my divorce, I had one class left, Pastor Peyton, and I saved statistics. Worst class ever. And I cried that whole summer trying to finish. Met a powerful woman, Power of One, and she prayed me through that statistics class and got a B. And when I turned that tassel with all of them people in that Coliseum, Purdue Fort Wayne, hey, listen, there was something in the pit of my stomach, though, that said, you ain't gonna stop here. And I kept saying, I'm taking a break. I'm tired of school. And then I went over to Indiana Tech, Power of One, Chris Dowse. He said, listen, you need to get a master's. There's no reason why you just gonna settle for, undergrad. And so went and did an accelerated program when my house burned down. And I think I had to travel by myself because nobody else would take the free flight with me. Had a free ticket for people to go see me graduate. And no one would go, no friends, nothing. I can't go. Free flight, free hotel. And this is what I'm learning about myself. The higher up, the less people are going to be in that journey with me. This is my experience. And this graduation was small, but it was powerful because it was in Portland, Oregon, and literally small arena. But Pastor Peyton, I never dreamed of a master's, never, because I was a struggling student. I got my B and C, and I was happy. But you couldn't get a C in this program. You had to get an A or a B, and I worked for that degree. I was broken, had gone through that divorce, didn't know who I was. My house had burned down, had lost it all, and so, that's why when I think about it, today, when I was driving and I said, man, Tamala Mann's song, he did it for me.
He did it for me.
He did it for me. He understood that I had to understand that there was more to me, and it was about everything that we've discussed tonight, that it is beyond me. And that's what leaders got to understand. That part of this journey is not really about your titles and the recognition. It's good, but it's really about the people that are attached to you that need to see you finish. I have a tree of 7 nieces and grandkids, all girls. Never had any girls, so I know God did this.
Yeah, he did that.
And they got to see me, Pastor Peyton. They got to see me finish. I never forget when Jessica Collins told me one time after my divorce and I contemplated dating.
This is one of the students.
One of my students,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And she said, now board member and planting Girls Rock in Atlanta soon. And she said to me, you can't get off course because we got to see you do it right. We need to see you. Somebody got to do it right.
I was talking to my editor this morning, and I'm trying to finish this book up and get it done. And we're on this chapter dealing with anticipate the worst purposely. That's the name of the chapter. And I said to him, I said, I'm trying to communicate the reality that sometimes as dreamers and visionaries, we spend so much of our time in the clouds that we don't anticipate the worst happening. And when it does happen, we don't have the flexibility to bounce back. So when we take an L, we take an L. And I said, I'm trying to help my audience understand that you have to anticipate the worst. And I said to him, I said, one of the things that I've learned is this, and I share this with you. You're absolutely right, but it's not your experience alone, though. Every leader. There isn't one leader in Scripture that God didn't call to a place of elevation where he didn't have to do separation. And that's lonely. That's hard because we have emotional attachments. Everybody wants to be Norm that walks into the bar and everybody says Norm. Norm! Everybody wants to go somewhere where somebody knows their name. But the reality of it is when you put your hands to that plow and you make a decision that you're going to go forward in down that path that God has you, you will never get to that place of elevation if you're not willing to accept the cut of separation. And that in and of itself is one of the most important things from my perspective about anticipating the worst purposely.
Yeah.
Because that's a lonely place to be. But one of the things that I've noticed about you and coming around the corner here is that every time that God has done that separation, and I know something about those cuts that you receive, you haven't taken your hands off the plow. You kept moving on. I didn't say it didn't hurt. I said that you haven't taken your hands to the plow, off the plow.
Well, I've watched women who haven't done it before me take it off, and I watched the richness of them. Joyce Caldwell. Like I tell people, Carolyn, my mom, Miss Bell, like she doesn't take, when my brother was murdered, I thought, okay, this is it. Like this gonna take her out. It didn't. It really rose something up in her to lean in more. It did hurt now. There were some nights and some mornings, but for the most part, she treaded on and understood that then family and put some things in perspective and stood stronger. And she said to me, recently, my mom is a woman of few words, but she said to me, I love you because you are my voice a lot of times. You keep me accountable. My mom loves to sometimes enable because she loves so hard. And so I'm that voice for her within my siblings and family when I say, no, that's enough. Like you've done what you need to do, that's enough. And so she's taught me how to keep it to the plow, but with balance. You and Sandy, I tell people, people say all the time, you ever gonna, no, I ain't departing now. I ain't departing them too, because you've shown me what it means to love God. I've watched people hurt y'all, come in through the church, and I be thinking, ooh, but you still love. I watch you operate in forgiveness, and I've watched you deal with your blind spots. as a leader. And to me, that's huge, you know, because you deal with them in the spotlight. You don't get to go quietly. Everything is under these bright lights that we're sitting under, but you've done it and done it well. And so that has then taught me how to have that same discipline, that when I miss it, I gotta own that, you know.
You just confirmed that I was that in my articulation of this chapter that I was right, because the editor was trying to get me to go to a different direction. I said no, and I closed the conversation out with the editor today. I said, people need to see you go through, so that they will know what it takes to get to the other side. You can't hide those scars. You can't hide that hard time. You got to go through it. Jesus.
And people have asked me, you know, even with the divorce, you know, I told somebody, Anthony and I didn't talk, my ex-husband, for 9 years. And when we did, though, you know, even, you know, a huge apology on his behalf and mine for some things. But the one thing he said to me is that I appreciated the manner in which you carried yourself through that silence. Never badmouthed me, never disrespected me, and you didn't devalue me with my boys. And that's why to this day, we can still now all go to dinner. We can, you know, have Christmas together, you know, and not in a dating fashion. He has his love. And so, you know, I tell people there is a benefit on the other side of that pain. There's purpose
in the pain.
Yeah, it's a purpose for it. And my grandkids will reap the reward of now being able to see us in rooms together in love and, you know, at their games and events. Because prior to that, it wouldn't have happened. And so, and I want even our family tree to be able to see that you can come back from that.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want it to cost the legacy of your last name.
Yeah. And all you got is your name.
Man, and it means something. And that's what I tell my granddaughters.
That name means something.
I told a group today when we were meeting that we talk a lot about when we're born and the date of our death. But really what's important is how you live in the dash.
I said, well, you live in the parentheses. Yeah.
You know, so.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time and being here with us. I thoroughly appreciate you as a person. I appreciate your commitment as a woman of God and everything that you do for this community and how you carry yourself. You are a light to young girls across their cultural differences and racial differences, black, white, Jew and Gentile. They love you and they see you and they appreciate all that you do to help them. I'm going to ask that you close by sharing one thing out of the plethora of things you could share with the young ladies out there today.
I think I would say, like, know who you are. And unapologetically walk in that. Lean into God's voice. I'm going to be honest about that, because I just think that too many times we begin to hear the voices of this part of the world instead of the upward voice. And fall forward. You know, there's going to be failure, but you cannot truly experience success if you are not willing to fail and fall forward. You know, teen mom could have been deemed as a failure, but I fell forward. You know, divorce could have been deemed as a failure, but I fell forward. You know, job loss, walked out of one, you know, with the box, could have been deemed as a failure, but I fell forward. And so I think that's what I would say, is that when those moments happen, take your time to recoup, but get up and fall forward, because there is a young girl waiting on you to fall forward so they can visually see it and experience it and know that they can also do it.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You have been listening to one of the mighty voices of our community across every spectrum of our community. This young lady continues to, as the Old Testament say, stand on the wall and cry aloud for the voiceless in our community. And I appreciate your time with us. I appreciate her time.
Thank you.
And I pray that you will be able to take these nuggets that she shared with us today and go forth and live a fit life. Fearless, intentional, and transformational. Thank you. May God bless you.